All right, so we are starting Python for Everyone, which is about introductory Python programming from a very beginner level to somewhere where you can get comfortable with Python. All right, so this is lesson number 1, and I'm going to take you, got a couple of tasks for this lesson. I'm going to talk about interpreted versus compiled languages. So what's the difference between these two? All right. We're going to talk about the IDE or the programming environment. So what does IDE mean and what kind of programming environment we're going to be using? I'm going to be using, basically, I'm going to let you ahead on this. I'm going to be using PyCharm, and so I'm going to talk about that. Also, let's see. I'm going to be taking you step by step onto installing the Python interpreter and the PyCharm IDE and give you an example session of those. I'm also going to be talking about installing and uninstalling different Python packages. Right, so you should know if you need certain package, how do you install it? If you don't, how to get rid of that. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. Finally, I'm going to also be talking about in today's lesson on how to generating an executable file from your Python script. Right? So if you want to, generally, if you want to execute a Python script, you need to have Python installed, and then you can go into that Python interpreter or environment, and from there, call your script and run it. But what about if you want to hand it over to somebody who doesn't have a Python script, Python environment, or he doesn't know about how to use it? So you can generate an executable file from your script, and then hand it over to whoever you want to give it to, and that person, all you need to do is just double click on that executable to run it, and doesn't need anything else or any Python environment or server. So we're going to talk about how to do that in today's so 5 stuff I'm going to be talking about. All right, so let's move on to interpreted versus compiled languages. All right, so there are 2 different kinds of languages. Well, you need to know that the computer doesn't know. The computer is a device that we can interact with by using some kind of a language. So if you want to communicate to the computer what to do and how to do it, we need to talk or use a certain language. Now we have so many different languages, we call them programming languages. And programming languages allow us to create a program or a set of instructions that tell the computer what to do or how to do it. Now, generally, computer doesn't understand any of those languages. All it understands is what is known as a very primitive language called machine language. So, computer only knows a very primitive language called the machine language. And the machine language only consists of binary numbers, 0, 1, 1, 1, whatever, 0, a combination of binary numbers, right, that we're not so good at. So what we need to do is we cannot converse with computer in these cryptic binary 1s and 0s, called binary language or machine language. So we came up with English-like languages, which have English-like commands, and then we write programs in those. But computer doesn't understand those things. So the program needs to be translated from whatever high-level languages, we call them high-level languages. So English-like languages are known as high-level languages, right? and cryptic binary like languages are known as low-level languages. All right. So examples of high-level languages, examples of high-level languages are, C, C++, JavaScript, of course Python, Fortran, Pascal. HTML is not a programming language, it's something else. There are so many different kinds of computer languages. All of them are not programming languages, so you keep in mind. HTML is basically a page formatting languages. Page formatting language. Then we've got SQL is a query language. It's also not a programming language, right? We've got so many different languages out there. Java, right? ... All right, so we use these. Now these languages need to be converted or translated into machine language for the computer to understand them and execute whatever instructions we are telling it to do. So we need some kind of program to do that. And that program is known as, they come in two varieties. They are either interpreters or compilers. So they translate high-level language programs into machine language. Okay, so yeah, so they come in two varieties. Either they are interpreters or they're compilers. The difference between them is interpreters take step by step each line, each instruction, they convert it into machine language, and then they send it to the processor inside your machine. The processor executes it, it gives you the result back, it gives the result back to the interpreter takes the result and then moves on to the next instruction. So in that in this case, it actually goes through your program instruction by instruction, step by step, or line by line, or statement by statement, convert them as it encounters it to machine language, sends it to the processor executes it, gives you the result back, it takes the result, and then moves on to the next instruction, and so on and so forth. Okay. In doing that, if it finds that you have mistyped something or any command that you've written is not part of the language, then it gives you error right away, right there and then. So interpreters translate program instruction by instruction or line by line, right? And at the same time sends it for execution. Okay, compilers on the other hand, they translate the whole program at one time, in one go. So they translate the whole program in one go and generate a corresponding machine language program file. So they take the program file in a high level language, let's say C, and then they go through the entire C program. If they find any problem in there, like you've mistyped something is not like according to the syntax of the language, then they stop the compilation process and they tell you that there's a problem and you need to fix it before they complete the process. If they find nothing wrong at all, they will go through the entire program, convert the whole thing into machine language, generate another file, which is an equivalent file in machine language for your C language program or Java program or Pascal or Fortran, what have you. And then finally they finish. And then you can double click or the executable file, which is called the executable file, the exe file. All right. So in the form of exe file, right? Double click on them or go into the command prompt and type the name of the exe file and press enter, and it runs like nothing. So so this is one difference. Interpreters translate programs step by step, compilers do it all in one go. The other difference is interpreters are always there to run the program because the program is in English-like language all the time. It never completely gets translated into an exe file, which is a binary file, binary or machine language file. So an exe file is actually a binary or machine language file. So interpreters are always needed. So in case of your Python, which is an interpreted language, the script, the Python script, is loaded into the interpreter. Interpreter executes it step by step. So always needed. So there are so the interpreted programs, for one reason, they are slow. For this reason, that interpreter, there's all the time at every step translation going on, and it's waiting for the result to come to it and then move on to the next instruction. While compilers do take initial amount of time in translating it, but that's offline program. Once it translate everything, the compiler's role is finished. It never runs again. All you need to do is double click on that exe file and it runs very fast because now everything is already translated. So it doesn't need any kind of conversion during the process. It's already converted. So it's not, compilers are not needed in the middle of execution, but interpreters are needed to execute an interpreted program, right? So let's do that. Let's write some of the other difference. Interpreted programs are slow. Compiled programs are fast. What are some of the examples of interpreted languages? Python is an interpreted language. JavaScript, MATLAB programming language is an interpreted language, right? What else? Perl is an interpreted language, not used so much anymore. But yeah, some of these types of languages are interpreted languages. Examples of languages that are compiled: C, C++, Java. So Java and JavaScript are two different languages. Pascal, no longer used. Fortran, no longer used. And Ada is used for defense projects and languages like these. All right, so these are some of the examples of those languages.